Dear viewers, and you are still watching the breakfast show, and in this segment of our program we will talk about how can entrepreneurs and SMEs survive the impact, the economic impact of coronavirus. And we are joined today by Mr. Abdo Magdi. He's a business coach and he will talk to us more about this issue. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir. What are the indications of coronavirus and the resulting lockdown on the entrepreneurs and the SMEs?
Yeah, that's not good. I think all of us can see by looking at the indicators, especially we usually go at the stock market, looking at how the stock markets are performing, and also understanding and visualizing the effects of the lockdown, that this is getting into an economic recession, and it's also going to be kind of intense, given that the underlying economic activities are quite suspended to a lot of extent. So it's about projecting how bad things are going to go and the time it's going to take it to recover. But we can see that the effects of a lockdown and suspension of a lot of economic activities are going to be intense on the economy. And accordingly also is going to be on small and medium enterprises and entrepreneurs.
So what are the top challenges of working remotely or at home?
Yeah, I think the solution for a lot of industries who are able to to afford to work from home is that they do it. So I think because people couldn't actually come to the head office or to the company's offices, so they start trying to work and produce remotely. And we can imagine all kind of distractions that happen inside home, because usually employees are used to go out in the morning and go to their workplace and they have their setup, they have their desks, and they usually do not have that at home. I think certain industries in the past years have been having that. So for example, those who are working in technology or internet businesses, they are quite used to that. So they might have actually maintained a home office for a very long period of time. I'm one of these people who have been lucky to have a home office for 14 years. So I know exactly how you can isolate yourself from the surrounding environment and you have your own setup to be able to produce. But I think one of the big challenges of jumping into remote work unprepared, which is I see as a challenge here, is that you have a large number of people who have to work remotely, they have to work from home, and they were not trained and they were not onboarded. And accordingly, they don't have the tools or the mindset to work on that. So we can imagine all kind of distractions, delays in deliverables. And if you listen to a lot of business people who are really talking about it, they see that there is no productivity at all. So these are all kind of challenges that's happening right now with the sharp transition into virtual work.
Yes. Mr. Magdi, what is the Smart Work program and what are the main components of it?
Yeah, I think smart work is a term that's used for a certain type of contracts. And I think this has been going on for a lot of industries, in which that there are people who can actually produce works remotely or independent of a space, so of a specific physical space. So smart work is not a new term, but rather it had been around, in which that you kind of contract with a company through which that you're an employee of the company, but you can actually work independent of the physical space. And sometimes it's about a number of days. So you're required to work, for example, half the time from an office and half the time remotely. So smart work is about an organized program that gets into the contract, the agreement between the employer and the employees about how they're going to do that remote work thing. So it's a proactive approach to look at the virtual work dilemma that we're getting into right now, is that it gets into the agreement as an employee and an employer, is that this is how remote work works.
Yes.
And by then within a program there is a lot of component with it, and some of this is to the employer side and some of them to the employee side, so it balances the expectations and the way things work between employers and employees. So I think companies who had smart work programs right now, they are the luckiest, because their employees and their management know exactly what to expect and understand the dynamics of how things should work. And some of the companies right now are actually looking at how do I kind of change that immediate change into virtual work, into a systemic way of managing that. And these are the companies that right now looking at smart work.
So as a team leader or a CEO of a company, how can I know if formalizing a smart work program could be good for me?
Yeah, I think that's going to depend on a lot of factors. Some of this is the industry, in terms of what is the industry that I'm working Like, for example, if I work in technology, if I work in knowledge related, some people like work on design offices, so they design products, they don't have to kind of be involved in execution. So any like knowledge based or like remote support, even people who work in customer service,
Yes.
because lots of customer service jobs have really moved online. So you're doing chat, you're even doing video chat, and also we're going to be seeing technology evolving to provide the tools for people to do that conveniently. So if I am the employer, if I'm the one who's responsible for running the business, I would start thinking of, does this work for me? And I would figure out if it doesn't work fully, like to what percentage can I make it work for me? And I think because like for the challenges and also the benefits of managing like a physical work environment, because if we look at it, other factors that's independent of the industry, things like traffic and commute, because people normally like wake up in the morning and they spend 1.5 hours getting to the workplace. So this is a lot of wasted time that usually like happens every day. So if I'm an employer, if I'm able to save that time and save that headache with my employees, I probably should expect more productivity.
But as an employee who used to go to work every day in the morning, the smart work, is it convenient for him, or at the beginning it could represent somehow a burden on him, or he might get bored from doing that?
Yeah, I think it's a sharp transition, especially for the employees who have been doing it for a long period of time. So for them to have the idea of working from home, I think people who work in technology and the internet, they had some like funny memes that goes around for saying that how people should not be expecting that you're working from home. So when you tell someone that you're working from home, they do not believe that. So they think they're unemployed. So to a lot of extent, the culture of having people working from home is not out there. And there are many challenges, especially if someone is managing a household. So there are kids and there are responsibilities and there are different types of distractions. So it becomes really difficult for them to manage their productivity during that time.
So how can I avoid these challenges?
Yeah, I think like the best way to avoid these is to actually have a program, something that's already designed where you onboard people to it. So it's not just an event, it's something random that happened, but rather you really think that through. And that actually comes in when you sit down and you think about like how do I make that work on a long or a medium term. And when you think about it, you think like there is part that has to do with the physical environment, right? Because my employees are going to be working from a specific desk. So I want to make sure that they have the physical in a specific room. So I want to make sure that they have this room or they have this section in a room where they have the desk convenience, they have the IT setup they have the computers, you have the internet connection, so they have everything they need for them to produce that work.
Yes.
So one component is actually producing, like having the physical environment available for your employees. Another part is also having like the software and the systems to manage tasks. So a big part is like waking up in the morning, just going to the desk. You have to see that these are the things that I'm expected to be doing, and I'm also can connect to the rest of the companies. There's like the internet is like pieces, things like Facebook, for example. It's like social network where you can go there, but you're going there to work. So you find like your manager is giving you a task, and you can actually report the amount of time you worked on that task. So having this IT setup and the project management tools and the dashboards available on these PCs is very vital for them to know where they are and what they're hitting at.
Yes.
So if we took care of the physical environment and we provided them with the tools, there is a big impact that comes to the mindset and well-being. So it's about how does people think. And I think that's a pretty tricky part, and there had to be a lot of efforts, especially from the people department, or what used to be called the human resources department, in terms of how do you get people excited to do the work? How do you make sure that they are kind of being productive while sitting on this computer and producing the work? So there's a lot of thinking that has to go into the idea of productivity and mindset. So
But still you have to be productive, because there is an amount of work which should be done at a certain time, or there is a due date. Sometimes you do conferences via the video calls, so you are somehow committed to work.
I think that's a big challenge, and I think when you think about it, that's the biggest challenge. And I think why you see there is a problem with virtual work, because you cannot guarantee that employees are going to get things done, because they have on time, especially, because if they have a lot of distractions, even if they have a deadline, even if the tool is saying that there is a deadline for it, they're going to procrastinate. If they don't have the setup, there is no internet connection, and they're having a lot of distractions.
With the load on the internet these days, it might be a challenge as well.
Yeah, you have all kind of factors that might affect for them to be able to commit to it. And I think that's where mindset comes in terms of I could have the setup, I could have the tools, but I have to have the mindset and the attitude to be able to go through the experience and produce the kind of work that I'm supposed to be producing.
So, sir, do you believe that smart work can go beyond the phase of coronavirus?
Yeah, I think it's good to look at it right now for a lot of companies who could actually have been doing smart work. And I think looking
It
at
proves to be successful in many companies.
it actually have proven to be very, very successful in some companies.
Yes.
And I think also it's like it becomes successful for certain types of employees, and certain types of employees have a hard time being onboarded to it. So this is another tricky part of like getting people who are not used to technology, for example, training them to technology. So this is another component of doing some effort and onboarding people into that system. And I think like onboarding is the key word here, because you can find the tools, you can find everything, but you have to be managing that properly. And also you have to be doing that in a very calculated and calm manner, in which that you do not overstress people, because this is a new experience for them. So you have to be very empathetic in terms of handing them this in a very kind of easy way, taking care of their well-being, their stress levels, etc. And we're actually seeing a lot of technology tools that getting into that. So there's a lot of AI tools that actually assist employees' activity. Like there's voice-enabled tools that you can talk to, which basically making sure that you're listening to a certain type of music, you're following up with the tasks. So we're seeing a lot of voice-assisted technologies that getting into that space, in which that you're waking in the morning, there's someone who talks to you, tells you what you're supposed to do, and this is all the voice-automated technologies. Things like Alexa and Siri, if you're acquainted with that, on a mobile phone, that you kind of the assist you is finding things on your phone, and technology is getting into having this virtual manager or virtual coach that you can talk to. And by then, they can not only take care of the tasks, but also they take care of your well-being, because they understand your character, the personality type, what you probably should, they should actually suggest for you, you need to take a break right now, because that's how intelligent technology is potentially getting into that.
Yes. Sir, what is the first step I should take as a business owner, a CEO, or an employer in order to start implementing the smart work?
Yeah, I think like lots of changes, I think the biggest risk comes when you just jump into it without any preparation. So I think like there is a code that says people are often not trained to jump. So definitely shifting into smart work is a big jump, but you need to be trained with that. So you need to kind of connect with people who do have the experience when it comes to smart work, and to kind of consult them into how do I put together a program that fits my company, and how do I train people and onboarding them into this program and guarantee and manage productivity moving forward. So I think like the best advice for people who are considering smart work is to kind of pause, take some time to reflect on that, and allow the time to design and to implement a program, thinking about it as a program, as a comprehensive program, not just as a software tool of bringing a project management tool, because it goes way beyond that.
So, sir, if we go back to talk about the SMEs and to what extent this industry is affected by coronavirus.
Yeah, I think we're gonna be seeing a lot of big companies having cash flow issues, and liquidating small companies being able to kind of also having cash flow issues. So there are going to be lots of challenges, especially in industries like the tourism, for example. So you see that there are industries that's kind of being totally locked down. And I think, like we have been talking a lot for what we call the digital transformation, and getting things done over the internet. So small and medium enterprises who are able to move right now into an internet component, not just with the smart work, getting them employees to work remotely, but looking at their strategy and their business model and how they can integrate technology.
Yes. That's a very important point, Mr. Abdo. To what extent the young entrepreneurs and the owners of companies could adapt here and try to survive what we are going through? How they can manage to get used to what's going on in order to have a business which could serve what the world is going through?
Yeah, I think also because this is a big event. So having a lockdown and having a disease, this could have a lot of traumatizing effect on people. So the best advice, the first thing that I personally did is to like self-isolate and reflect on that. So just slowing down, just not doing any communications, and just taking my time into adjusting into that. So I think like pausing for a few days, not for a very long period of time, but for a few days to reflect on that, understanding that this is what it is. I mean, like this is happening. Because some of these businesses and small businesses, they're going to shut down. But the thing is, and there's no way for not to shut down, depending on the industries, but they could actually come up with a new idea based on...
How they can think out of the box and get new ideas which can survive and serve during that very hard time?
I think one of the good things right now is that there is a lot of learning resources that's made available online. So for them, if you run a business and the business became not possible for it to go on, and then you have to go through the bad experience, and I think it's going to have to do a lot of healing time. And I think we have to also, during times like this, we have to be very considerate and empathetic in terms of people are going through things. So allowing them the space to kind of go through that and being like soft with it. But by then they can have a lot of learning resources to see how they can actually make that work with the new world, with the new internet, with the e-commerce. And then they come up with different ideas in terms of like, I'm going to move forward doing that, which could be like somehow complementary to what I used to do, or it could be totally different. So by then once they figure that out, they can actually, like, as also things become clearer with time and also capital becomes more available again, they could probably be able to raise funds, build a new team, and launch if they were not able to maintain their current operation.
Yeah.
So what are your tips to young entrepreneurs at this time?
Yeah, I think it's, I think actually, personally, I think like the young entrepreneurs, I don't think they are that affected by this event as much as bigger companies. So you see bigger companies, when people having a lot of payroll, and then they are taking care of 100 people.
Obligations.
So it's a big, yeah. So for entrepreneurs, for like small teams, like they're 2-3 people, they're getting started. They most likely, they don't have a lot of financial resources, and they could actually be working remotely. I think for them, it becomes about, you know, like becoming a stoic, you know, like one of the concepts is becoming really adapting to what's happening, and also taking it from a positive perspective, seeing that these are the things that couldn't be done, because I could see a lot of things, you know, like there's a lot of memes with people having, like, there's a car parking, and then there's something big that's kind of crashed into it, and seeing that this is how entrepreneurs, like how coronavirus treated entrepreneurs, that they crashed their cars, basically. So there's a lot of people lamenting that the things are destroyed. So, and that could actually be good for them to reflect on that for a while. But afterwards, the question is, how do I really think about it differently? So this is crushed, okay? I'm fine with it. I went through the experience. What do I build right now? Because also it's very good for a recovering economy to have the entrepreneurs who are going to come up with new ideas and find out what the economy should do. But I think also for Egypt, this could be a positive thing, because we have a lot of young population. These could be empowered with the internet. So Egypt could actually offer a lot of technology-enabled and internet-enabled services that would actually drive like economic input into Egypt.
Do you think, Mr. Magdi, that the ideas after the COVID-19 would be different from that of before? Or can we start to have new ideas, maybe more remote services? Can we do that? Can we start to have more innovative ideas here?
Yeah, I think 100%, and I think like there is something that's being said by that, which is like when it comes to digital transformation, they tell you who took the initiative on digital transformation in your company, your CEO, your CTO, or COVID-19, and usually people say COVID-19
Yeah, it's true.
because like people who work in technology, they have actually seeing all these patterns evolving with time. So in the past 10 years, we've been seeing all these things moving into remote work, the economy changing, and there was a lot of initiatives and projects in the start that moves into technology. Right now is the current situation. You're going to see that a lot of people are going to start seeing that. So a lot of bigger companies are going to start seeing that there is an opportunity with technology. There's an opportunity with using the internet. So definitely things are going to be different, not just with the technology like enabled, but also in the way people interact. So there's a lot of theories there that we do not have to get into, but whether the bigger companies are going to survive and expand, whether it's the smaller businesses, whether like business is going to be done in a localized environment. So these are all different patterns, and also depending on how things go when it comes to the timeline, and we hope that hopefully like the lockdown is lifted and we're back to work very soon.
So I'd like to thank you, Mr. Abdou Magdi, business coach. Thank you for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. Always a pleasure to have you with us, Mr. Abdou. And our dear viewers, that will bring us to the end of this edition of The Breakfast Show. You were in the company of myself, Mahisti Rabia, and my dear colleague Shirin Ali. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mahisti, and see you, dear viewers, tomorrow with a new crew.